Hey, good morning, good morning. Man, I was not ready. Hold on. All right, you didn't want to hear all that. Jeez. Oh man, good morning. I'm all allergied up. Got our narcissistic mug with our narcissistic logo. Wearing my keto shirt and my like trucking hat. So there's my clothing report. Good morning. It's Friday, and I've got a little bit of talking points here when it comes to dispatch or self dispatch, however you want to look at it. And of course, we'll do the low board stuff, and we'll do that as well. But I kind of want to go over this. Anyways, we'll get some people in here. We'll do some shout outs. We went to the Slipknot concert Wednesday night, and it was really good. I wasn't too much into the opening bands. It was oh Crown of Empire or Crown the Empire, somebody like that. They're okay, but the opening band always gets the shaft because the crowd hadn't been put in there yet, and doors open at 6:30. They went on like at 7, and then with like 90% of the people in line to buy Slipknot shirts, and then Ice Nine Kills. They had some good theatrics, but from the nosebleed seats, it wasn't really that effective, and they didn't have like a video screen or anything like that. But then Slipknot, if you look at my picture on Instagram or Facebook, man, excellent stage show. I mean, they had the pyro, they had multiple levels, they had the stage presence. I mean, they put on a good show. And I had not seen that many one band t-shirts since Iron Maiden. You go to an Iron Maiden concert, about 90% of the people in the building are wearing Iron Maiden shirts. They have like 30 varieties. And shout out to Landstar because I was looking at their trucks, the trucks for the tour, and Landstar had one truck. Truck and Roll had two or three of the others. I can't remember what the third one was. Oh, Trailer Transit, they had one. But they had a whole semi just for merchandise. And I thought, because they had each truck marked that was parked on the street. So, Jason, if you're watching, that was pretty cool. But the important part is the youngest had a great time. And literally at the same age, I was 17 and saw my first metal concert at Hammond's. And yeah, youngest got to do the same thing. So, anyways, so that was cool. That was cool. I'm not like I don't go out and buy the newest Slipknot albums or anything like that, but they are pretty cool. I was thinking about getting a shirt, but I didn't want to stand in line. I mean, the line for the merch was just crazy, and I was glad to see that because that's how a lot of bands make money. But we didn't come here to talk metal today. We came here to talk trucking and fashion show Friday. Nothing, Winnie. You're funny. Um, we talk metal on the open forum weekend deals, weekend lives. If I do one, Pale Rider, if you're in here, let me know if you're going to go live, and I'll do a pre-show show if as long as things are going okay in the dispatch world. So with that being said, let's do some shout outs. We got Pigtail, first one in here. Good to see you, my friend. Gary Compton. Gary Compton's been kind of quiet, but I'm glad to see you piped up on my last video. So I appreciate you, Gary. I've always had good conversations with you. I hope you're doing well. Looks like you are. That's probably why you have not been on YouTube, because he, like many other YouTubers, myself included, it's hard to work on your YouTube channel when it's not the priority. And I've gotten some really great donors for the microphone and for the headphones, and and some good advice. So, and since I'm not driving as much, I have the ability to work on this YouTube. But then, if there's a couple of weeks where I'm dispatching a lot of trucks, or things aren't quite right, I have to focus on the business. And so I imagine that's kind of what Gary's doing. Chucky, what's up? Good morning. William Buck Brown, perfect timing. Coffee just finished brewing. Excellent, excellent. Shannon, good morning. Did you ever? I never heard back from you after you asked about Fort Smith. Yeah, let me know what you got there. Dennis, good morning. Big Houston, you texted me. What you text me? I didn't get your text there, Mr. Houston. Pale Rider TV, what's up? Running Aces, good morning. Chuck for Life, how you doing? Nothing. Woody's making fun of me in the house. Jeremy Rice, what's up? CDN, good morning, Steve. Glad you had a good concert. Yeah, it was good. It was good. TBT, I got your guitar picks in the mail yesterday, and it should be arriving shortly, depending on how long as the post office truck doesn't crash and burn. Let's see, just RD, good to see you surfacing again. You also responded to the last couple of videos, and I appreciate that. Let's see. CDN is a very popular addition to my channel. He's every time he gets on, a lot of people like what he has to put out. So, Wheelburner Express, good morning, fellow Iron Maiden fan. I wore my Iron Maiden shirt on the last live feed just for you, my friend. Pale Rider, plan on going live tonight. Text me later. Okie dokie, I will. And so yeah, everybody go to Pale Rider TV's channel. He goes live usually every Friday at 8:00 Central. So I used to love Iowa for working out too when I was pretty new forever ago. Nothing witty is talking about the Slipknot album, Iowa. They only played one. They only played that. They did not. They played. Well, okay. Let me start over. They only played. They played all their good stuff, but there's only one song. That's what I'm trying to say. There was only one song that I wanted to hear that they didn't play. Nothing wrong with talking tunes and trucking the same sentence. William Buck Brown, I agree wholeheartedly. But some people like me to be more focused. I would like me to be more focused. Speaking about focus and rebuilding, I shared a Order of Man's video on my community post, and I appreciate it if you guys would check out that video. It's a great video. I've read his book, Sovereignty, and it's a good message. Jose, good morning. No, I saw it was crap at the time, so I didn't book it. So I'm still looking for a load for today. All right. So Shannon, this video is going to be for you and for many others. Steve, your EILD and first day of fall market update were great videos. Thank you. I appreciate that, CDN. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. TK, hey now. Ratman, what's up? I still need to have a conversation with Ratman. Waiting here in St. Louis for someone to get here so I can get unloaded. Good deal. Good deal. So I want to talk about booking ahead. Shannon. I'm going to pick on Shannon because she likes me. She bootlegs my coffee mugs. But if she comes through Springfield, I'll give her this mug and I'll sign it. You guys remember when Little Guy sold his truck, or he got a different truck at Traveloco and he signed the table for the next driver? You guys remember that? That was fun. Not making fun of Little Guy, but that was funny. I'll do that too. If I ever sell my truck, I'll sign the table. So anybody who wants my truck, that's an extra 10 grand if I sign the table. So anyways, I joke. All right, so let me do one more thing. Hold on. Okay. All right. So booking ahead. Now, when I first started the spot market, I was afraid to book ahead. Jeff's authority was pretty new. Um, I found myself afraid to book ahead because I was afraid to cancel a load if something happened, or I was afraid of getting um, delayed or whatever. And I had the same problem at Landstar. That was something that Schneider, it was a little bit easier to deal with because at Schneider you click and go, and you clicked on 3 loads that you book ahead to, and then if something happened where you had to cancel all of them, you just called Schneider. They asked why. They could see the results because it's their load board, and and then you recovered just like that because for every load that you had to cancel, there was 2 to take its place. So it was never really an issue unless you went into a dead area for the Schneider platform. But Landstar, you really didn't want to book ahead, or at least I felt I didn't want to book ahead because if I book 4 loads ahead, well, number one, a lot of the Landstar agents are bringing it or are taking those loads off the spot market, off the DAP board. So they didn't even have them guaranteed, right? And so there was one week where I did book ahead, and I ended up having the deadhead 300 miles because they were all short loads to just skip that load and go to the next one because I didn't want to, piss off, 2, 3 agents at once because a load canceled on me. And then the other thing Landstar would do is, or agents would do at Landstar, it wasn't Landstar doing it, but they would do a whole string and you could book the whole string. The problem with that was that um, you would do the first half and then the second half would cancel and they would only the money was on the second half, so you only get X amount. So I never partaked in those. And so one of the best advice I got at Landstar was if you book ahead at Landstar, you want to do long runs. So if you're doing a run, say from Laredo to Boise, Idaho, that's when you book ahead. And I did find it to be easier if I could be a day ahead, but mentally I had trouble with that. So naturally, when I got back in the spot market, that I saw my old patterns and old habits from Landstar popping up. In fact, your grabber called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, you got to book ahead." Because at the time the market was starting to drop a little bit, and he's like, "You got to book ahead. You got to give 3 hours. You can't just like deliver at 10 a.m. on Thursday and then book something for Friday." I said, "You're creating your gaps." That was the problem at Landstar. Schneider, you could fill in those gaps. Not a whole lot of sitting when I was at Schneider. So it took me a minute, but I got it, right? I got back into my groove, and within about 3 months I was booking ahead, and there became a point in 2019 where you had to book ahead because if not, Provost was giving me good advice. Jeff gave me good advice. You have to book ahead because a lot of the times, um, if you're booking day of, you're getting the crap that no one else wanted. And why didn't they want it? Well, it's because either multiple stops or it was um, weird times or a crappy rate that the broker's not budget on. So when I started to book ahead, that's when my money got back up there. Now, there are some cons of booking ahead, but the pros outweigh it tremendously. Now, you always hear of that guy that booked the load at the last minute because some truck broke down and it's 3 p.m. and on a Friday and you got $5,000, you got $5 a mile to do this load because you were the rescue truck. And you were able to stick it to the broker because you're the rescue truck. And there were people at Landstar that had that strategy. Friday at 3:00 was your best time to get the best rate. Never book ahead on a Friday. I never saw that. I tried it, but I never saw that. And when it comes to the spot market, it's the same thing. It's you're not the rescue truck. You're not going to find that in the needle in a haystack. You're not going to find that. If you do, buy a lottery ticket because it's a every now and then kind of situation. I'm in this situation because a great load I had already booked canceled. So that's where it's and Shannon, I'm just giving you friendly grief, right? When a load cancels, you have no choice. Now you're booking day of, and so the stress of dealing with that, and this is one of the pros. Okay, the stress of dealing with that, and you have to do that every single load. Man, imagine doing that for 2 or 3 or 4 years that it takes to pay off your truck, right? So one of the pros of booking ahead is, let's say you book a load for Friday, picks up Friday morning, and it's Wednesday, and you booked this load. On Thursday morning, the broker calls, says, "You're SOL. Sorry, sucks to be you. Have a good day." Load canceled. So now you got some time to recover. The other opposite spectrum of that is, let's say you have a truck issue, right? You have an issue that you have to cancel that load. Well, if you cancel that load, let's say your truck breaks down Wednesday afternoon and you can't make that Friday pickup, you call that broker and now they've got a day and a half to cover that. And that's where the broker relationships come in. Now, if you're a brand new trucking authority or you're a small trucking authority, that's tough. It's tough to cancel loads because, hey, this is a brand new broker I just set up with that, I'm, and I want to establish this relationship. Then you got to cancel the first load before you even pull a load for them. And that doesn't look good. But, the argument I would say if a broker gives you crap for that is like, look, I wouldn't have taken the time to fill out your carrier packet, if I was just going to book another load. My truck really is broke down, or the last load I booked, canceled, so I'm not even going to be up there. Jeez, allergies are burning. So it's for me, my success in both my own truck and for the trucks I dispatch is when I can book ahead. Now, a lot of times I'm put in a situation where I can't do that. A lot of times, there are a few times when I took my chances because of the market. There was like, if you go into Chicago, or Milwaukee, and even Southwest Missouri, I can usually get away with booking day of. But imagine this. So let's say you're a company driver, or you're a lease op, Pale Rider, he owns his truck now, but let's say you're like Pale Rider, you're dispatched. How annoying would it be? And then this was annoying to me when I was dispatched, that you don't have your load booked ahead. Like, you don't know which direction to go when you're empty out and you got to get to the truck stop. I remember a time that I delivered in this little tiny town in the middle of nowhere in southeast Missouri. It was like 60 miles south of Rolla in the woods. And my choices, and they had signs all over the parking lot where I was delivering trucks. You cannot stay here. As soon as you're empty, close your doors and leave. And the cops would tell you the same thing. I mean, they did not want you there. Get in, get out. Because there's nowhere to park in that town. I forget the name of this town. So they didn't want you hanging out. They didn't want you hanging out at the Walmart, waiting for your next load. They didn't want any of that. And their lot wasn't that big. So you're allowed to show up an hour early. That's about it. And I'm talking these 2-lane roads, some of it not even like lined roads. I mean, I think there's some footage out there. I think I put some footage on Facebook of this road that it was on. Anyways, I get to the customer and they're like, so I call my dispatch. I'm like, look, man, I got to go. And I was literally 30 miles from I-44 and 35 miles to I-55. And I said, where am I going? I don't know yet. Well, you need to figure it out because I don't want to go I-44 and then you have me pick up in Jackson, Missouri. I said, so while I'm getting unloaded, I'm pressing on my dispatcher, and finally I called the load planner. I was like, look, dude, I am getting kicked off this parking lot and I am in the middle of nowhere. There's literally nowhere to park. You need to tell me a direction, north or south. Go south. So off to I-55 I went, and luckily that was where my next load came from. Put stress on the driver when you don't know what you're doing next. And and it happens in my dispatch. Driver's like, "Hey, so what's your plan after I get to Indiana?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have one yet. I have a plan, but I don't have anything booked." So it makes the driver feel better if I got them booked ahead. So finding the balance as a small carrier to book ahead enough that if something happens, you're not burning bridges with the brokers. But here's the other thing, and this is Big Rig CEO and I were talking about this yesterday because he books his truck and his other truck a week ahead, and he had to cancel like 3 loads because of a receiver leaving 2 pallets on the trailer that they didn't order. So it became a whole situation, and that's the kind of things that you deal with. And see, that's the thing though, brokers understand that. So if you're booking your Friday load on Monday and something happens, they've got 4 days to recover. It's when you call it, your load was supposed to pick up at 2 p.m. and you call it 1:35 and say, "Hey, I have to cancel this load." That's when they get pissy, and rightfully so. And I'll get to the comments here in a second. So there are pros to booking ahead. Number one, it's less stressful, I think. Give yourself a 3-hour window. So part of that is knowing your customers. If you're going to Kroger or Associated Wholesale Grocer, I tend not to book ahead unless it's an open window appointment for the next load, because you don't know how long it's going to take for you to get out of there. And AWG, like here in Springfield, I've been there 1 hour and I've been there 10 hours. I've been there 1 hour with mixed product, and I've been there 10 hours with one product, one SKU. So there's no rhyme or reason. So that doesn't give me fuzzy faith to book ahead on those loads. So I tend not to do them. So majority of the time, if I'm delivering to AWG in Springfield, it's going to be a Friday afternoon, and I'm going home, and the broker I know will not short me on detention. I only use brokers I know that will not short me on detention on those loads. But booking ahead can be a challenge. So let's say I'm delivering Kroger at Friday afternoon, I will book for Saturday morning. But then you got your issues with that as well. So, and the problem with, okay, so let's say I book on Thursday, I book Saturday ahead, Saturday morning. I still keep an eye on the low board and what's there. And I want to make sure that the volumes are good, because if that load cancels, or if I get there, because a lot of brokers will tell you that, oh yeah, it picks up Friday night or Saturday, you're good. And then you get there, and then no, we're only open Monday through Friday. So you have to, it's better to know the customers. It's better to check the Google reviews if you don't know the customers. And um so booking ahead can be stressful, but it's also less stressful, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, because that's all this narcissism is my opinion, right? Um, and I've had this lecture. I've had people tell me, book ahead, book ahead. I'm like, I don't know, I don't, and so I'm guilty of that, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is there are times to book ahead, and there are times when not to. And the times to book ahead far outweigh the cons of not booking ahead. I was talking to a fellow YouTuber about booking ahead, and they swear that they get better rates by being able to book day of. And look, if it costs me $100 for the week to book ahead and not have the stress of making 20 phone calls while I'm getting empty at a dock, I think that would be a lot better sustainable. Because again, the chances of you getting a load the day of, don't take my word for it. If you're empty somewhere this morning, or you're getting ready to deliver, like say 10 or 11 a.m. today, and you're trying to look for a load, let me know how flexible the brokers are being for your weekend load. Because my experience, whether it was Chicago or a less volume area, they are not well, Indianapolis, I'll use that as an example. They were not budging. Because here's the thing, they assume that if you're calling on a Friday afternoon for a load that picks up Friday afternoon, that you're going to be desperate, whether no fault of your own, or that's just how you are. Like Shannon's case, where her load canceled, and they know that. Now, that broker that is desperate to move something because he had a truck fall off, they'll check the truck volumes and they say, you know what, there's plenty of trucks, I can hold this. And they'll get close to the 15-30 day. Like maybe the 30 day will be 2,500 and they'll be at 24, or they'll just say 25. So you call them like, oh man, you're already at 25? Yeah, let's do it. So there's no desperation by the broker. Desperation by the broker happens when it's a critical load, when it's a blow to the contract with the shipper if they don't get it moved. And guess what? Those loads, they tend to pay a little bit better because the broker doesn't mess around. They're not looking for the cheapest truck. They're just, I mean, they are, but when it comes time to give up the money, they will. And again, we all hear the stories, oh, I got an extra $400 because they were desperate, or I call on this load on Thursday, and then by Friday afternoon, it wasn't, like you hear the stories of like, well, today it's going to be 1,500, but tomorrow it's going to be, 2,000. You're like literally telling the broker you're going to price gouge them in the morning if it's still there. That's not good business. They're not intimidated by you. In fact, they'll be like, all right, see ya. You don't have the leverage that you think you do. Yes, the trucks are taking all the risk. We have all the costs. We have all the shenanigans we got to deal with. But that doesn't entitle you to treat a business partner like crap. So booking ahead in relationships become incredibly important because like for example, one of my brokers that I use a lot, I had to cancel a load. He knows I'm not full of it. He knows I'm not just making it up. He knows that I didn't just find something better. So no harm, no foul. And he can recover because it's usually the day before, so it gives him time to recover. And while volumes have upticked in the van and reefer markets, not flatbed, there's there's a good chance that if you fall off a load at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the broker just puts his cell phone number in the description, so he can talk to you if he leaves the office. And that load gets covered, or they just tell the shipper, "Look, we can ship this on Monday or the next day." It's not a big deal because, as Sage has pointed out, they're not desperate for this stuff. So that's perishable's different. Perishable, you can get away with that a little bit more, but non-perishable, that trailer full of T-shirts, they're not in a hurry for those. So booking ahead can has its advantages. It can keep you from making 30 phone calls in the dock while getting empty and you have nowhere to park. It keeps you from making emotional, desperate decisions, which is what's taking a lot of people out right now. So these are just my thoughts. Morning Coffee Live, Morning Coffee Thoughts Live. I'll put a link out if you guys want, but let me do the comments here. All right. Driving I-44 East, waving at you. There you go, TBT. If I know New York going to come through, I just would have handed you the pics. Dennis says these truck prices are still ridiculous. Yes, they are. A key is if you have your own MC authority, you need a network. If you don't, you quickly lose perspective of the big picture. Same if you're an owner operator, build a relationship with other drivers. I believe it's easy to be reclusive in this industry, right? That's one of the things I actually kind of miss is yes, I'm on the phone all day, but if I'm dealing with brokers and booking and safety stuff, I don't have time to talk to my friends like I used to. So I've kind of lost touch with a couple of them. And everybody on Zello is like, mad at me because I haven't gone on Zello in months. Pale Riders channel, and I think I do. I have my own Zello channel, but like I think two people have have been there. I can't talk. So networking is important. Randy, what's up? Donnie Luke, good morning. Self-dispatch in Canada does not exist other than a Landstar driver. In Canada, carriers protect drivers. Carriers rarely let us speak directly with the driver. Big Rig, you up for getting in here? Study the market the night before, look at possible cities, then look at outbound loads from those cities for volumes. This can help me make fast decisions on a load when loads are booking fast. And that's the other thing. So I always have the backup plan. I always have like, okay, what if this load cancels? What else can I get? So I try to stay in areas where if a load cancels, it won't be a bunch of crap happening. And I believe Shannon was in the southeast, so that might be why it was more of a struggle when her load canceled. Um, because higher volumes, the easier it is to book. And that's what a lot of people are dealing with. There are people that are dealing with the rates just fine, but it's the volumes that are throwing them for a loop. And there's no room for error. Just listening to you all in Spot Market makes me glad I started a fleet at the Mega. Customer already there, trailer's already there. It's definitely a lot of work, Fran. I mean, it's a lot of work, and so you have to look at your goals. Why is someone an owner operator? And that has to be with your goals, and you're obviously going with your goals. All right, Big Rig, here you go. There's the link. Remember, pause the video, click on the link, and then come in. Big Rig CEO and I had a good discussion yesterday about booking ahead, the pros and cons. Because not only does he self-dispatch, but he also dispatches for his other truck. And look, that's where the value of having someone like me can be effective. I can help you book ahead. Because if you're running 550, 650 miles a day, when are you going to look at the low board? Now, there was a time where volumes were good, so good that you could book during your 30-minute break. But most of the time, if you were going down the road, you had to make some phone calls, cold calls to brokers that you already had a relationship with. Hey, man, I'm heading to Oklahoma City. What do you got out of there? What is up, my friend?
So, coffee time.
Coffee time. Hey,
I'm waiting to get called down in this cave, so this may be very short. I don't know. Like when the phone rings, I got to go.
Yeah, and you got no signal down there.
Right. I'm lucky I got
Carthage
one
or
here.
Springfield?
Carthage. Yeah.
That's a good one. It ain't no geospace, that's for sure.
No. Oh God, no. There's plenty of room to move down. And look, there's a couple tight spaces when you go down here. Depends on who you're picking up for, but for the most part, it's pretty wide open. And the spot I got to deliver, I've delivered this load probably 30 times, and it's super simple.
So,
Anyway.
what are your thoughts on booking ahead?
I recommend it. Right. I try to always stay booked 2-3 loads out, and a lot of people, I think, and I was telling you this yesterday, they're afraid to book ahead because, oh my God, what if something happens to one of these loads, and then I got to call a broker, and they're going to be all pissed off at me, and they're not going to want to deal with me anymore. And I call the nonsense on that, right? I've had entire weeks fall apart booking ahead. And if you have good relationships with your brokers, look, brokers are not stupid. Their loads fall apart, right? Their loads fall apart. So when you and their loads push out, their loads cancel. So when you call them, as long as you have a good relationship and a legitimate reason for canceling the load, they're going to be very understanding. They're also very understanding if, say, you're going to be late for a load, right? A lot of people don't want to book. They're like, well, what if, especially like in my game, right? I'm in the reefer game, and all these reefer warehouses, they take 12, 14 hours. Well, first of all, try to stay away from the ones that do take 12 to 14 hours, right? And I get stuck at them once in a while too, for sure.
Yeah.
But my rule of thumb is 3 hours. If I got an 8 a.m., I'm not looking for anything before that's picking up before 11. I'm going to give a receiver 3 hours. And then, you got to obviously factor in, well, what's going to be the deadhead if I go get that load? And so that's something you've got to be able to figure on the fly. But again, I have found in every instance that I've called a broker and said, hey, here's what's going on. I'm either going to have to cancel this load or I'm going to be late for this load. That the brokers that I deal with are very understanding. And I've had to cancel loads. Like I had to cancel one the other day that I booked with Becker, not Decker, but Becker Logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my first load booked with them ever. And even that broker was totally cool about it, totally understood the situation. I had it on. My other driver was on a load. Freight got left on his trailer because the receiver never even ordered that freight. And now instead of just taking it and donating it, they literally wanted that freight taken all the way from Detroit over to Chicago area and delivered to FFE so that they can LTL it back to where he picked it up. And I told the broker that, and he was like, yeah, no problem, man. Cool. So
here's a comment. Tony C says the biggest con of booking ahead is the amount of money being left on the table. What's your thoughts on that?
Again, nonsense. That right there is about your relationships with your brokers. First of all, look, if you're calling for loads 3-4 days ahead, that's a two-way street. Now, if you're calling like a TQL or a Surge, right, you're going to get lowball day of and 4 days out. That's how those companies operate. You notice when you call TQL or Surge, and there's a few others, you don't really have a specific broker that you call all the time.
Right.
And they do that so you cannot build a relationship with them, because they're afraid if the broker you're dealing with and you get tight, that maybe they'll be, not so willing to lowball you. And they want people to lowball you. And I get that. There's brokers out there that are like that. But the brokers I deal with, I got relationships with. And I'm going to get the same rate day of that I am if I book it 3-4 days from now. And like in the instance where it's a new broker, it's a two-way street there too, because they don't want their load booking at the last second, right? So if you're trying to get $500, $400 more than the 15-day average, yeah, you want to book last second day of and pray for a miracle, right? And you're looking for that unicorn load that didn't get picked and it needs to get done. And today's the last day they can ship it and they've already put it off for 2 weeks. You're looking for that load, right? I get that. But the freight that you want to haul is the freight that they have on a consistent basis. And I have found once you establish a fair rate with a broker, and notice I use the word fair rate with a broker, that is beneficial to you, it's profitable to you, but they're also making some money on it, they are more than happy to just continue to give you a fair rate 3, 4, 5 days out, because now that's one less headache on their desk. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, so there's a balance there, Tony, I believe. If every owner operated motor carrier booked no earlier than the afternoon before shipping, we would naturally get higher rates. I kind of disagree with that, because there's a lot of people that do already, and it hasn't really helped. It's supply and demand. But it looks like Tony agrees with you on the relationships. Cold calling off the low board, again, it's like you said, you're looking for that unicorn load, that one broker that's desperate, and that's hard to spot. Especially if you're new.
The other thing about cold calling loads off the load board, and I've had to do it, we've all had to do it, everybody's got to do it. I still do it, right? I'll still cold call a load. I did it with, like I said, Becker Logistics last week. The thing about that is this. I don't look at the load board like, especially when I'm having to do it and I'm calling last minute on a load, or even if I'm, like booking in advance on a load, I don't look at it like, okay, I'm going to call this broker and I'm going to see, how much money I can absolutely gouge them out of. I was doing that in the beginning, right? When I first got my left Schneider, I was just trying to absolutely gouge their eyes out every single time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And what I quickly learned, and look, by the way, at that point in time, rates were substantially higher than they are now.
Yeah.
But what I learned is it's not your goal. Look at the load board like they are providing you with leads, and you're a salesman. And your job is to call and earn that customer's business, not once, but every single time going forward. And so when I approach it from that mentality of, hey, I'm not looking to gouge this guy's eyes or this gal's eyes out on every single load. I'm not going to try to gouge him on any load. I just want to get a fair rate. And more importantly, I want to build a relationship. And so I look at the load board as these are leads for me to build new relationships to expand my network of possibilities to continue to have a continuous stream of solid income. And that to me is more important. I'll do a load for less than the 15-day average all day, every day, if it's building a solid relationship with a broker. I don't care what the 15-day average is because it's really irrelevant, right? The 15-day average is for people that, to me, all the 15-day average is it's brokers trying to push the rate as low as possible and drivers trying to get the rate as high as possible instead of a driver and a broker forming a relationship and building on that. So to put that into perspective, a lot of the loads that I do now, and I'm only again just over a year into my authority, but fully 70-80% of the loads that I do now at this point, just in that short period of time, money is never even discussed. I mean it. We don't discuss money. We discuss what are the particulars of the load. When does it pick up? When does it deliver? Where is it going? And what's the weight? What's the temperature? What's the product? The money has already been done. The money was done months ago when I booked the load. And I just did a rate con with the same rate that I did it for the first time because we agreed on a fair rate at that time. And this whole idea of rates are down, rates are down, rates are down, rates are down compared to what? Rates are down compared to when they were $5 or $6 a mile. Yeah, you bet. Rates are down compared to a 10-year average overall. I don't think so. I think we're right on par with what a normal freight market looks like. I think COVID completely changed because it completely changed the way everybody thinks, the way that COVID affected our industry, right? First, the bottom fell out of it and everybody was getting offered $1.60 a mile. And I know you remember that, right? $1.50, $1.60, that was
Yep.
the low end. And then all of a sudden it went the other direction and everything was literally paying $5 and $6 a mile. And it paid $5 and $6 a mile for so long that everybody got it in their head that this is the new normal. No, this is not the new normal. It was a fluke. And a lot of us on YouTube were saying, hey, this is going to go away. You need to get ready for that. Get ready for that. And when you look at the rates now, if you've got good relationships with your brokers, you're going to be getting, I would say, van, you're going to be getting 2.25 to 2.5, depending on the area. There are still very bad areas in van, just like there are in flat, just like there are in reefer. And if you're in refrigerated, you're going to be getting 3+ a mile on everything you do if you have good relationships with your brokers. And I have to say that 3+ a mile is good money. When is it not?
Right.
250 to 2.25 on van is good money. When is it not?
Well, back in the last freight boom, back in 2017, early 2018, our rates right now are still higher than they were at that point. You know, a lot of people don't realize that.
Sure.
And yeah, you can sit there, inflation, fuel, and all that stuff, absolutely. But you're speaking with experience, right? I mean, that's your personal experience. You're out there in the trenches. You're out there booking for 2 trucks, and you're making it work. And so I think the
Well,
words that you say
fuel
are
must
very
not be
valuable.
that bad because I'm at the truck stops earlier this morning, dude, and there was 100 trucks idling. It's like, oh, DPF parts must be back in stock and fuel must be cheap as hell because everybody's still idling their trucks. And by the way, I'm in Missouri. You're in Missouri. It's in the low 60s this morning.
Perfect
You don't,
weather.
right? You don't have to idle your. I'm so happy. I love summer, but I don't love 90 to 100-degree days. I'm not a fan at all. And so I'm so happy that we're back to what I like to call overall weather. I don't like sweating. But yeah, I mean, look, if you manage your business properly, if you watch what you're doing, if you don't idle your truck, if you aren't trying to do 75, 80 miles an hour down the road, um, there is still plenty of money to be made out here. Now, I think the people that are the most upset about not having the $5 and $6 freight. And by the way, I'm still getting some loads that are paying 4+ if they're shorter. But I think the people that are really complaining about the $5 and $6 freight rates disappearing are the ones that spent so much money on their equipment that they need $5 and $6 to profit, and they're barely breaking even in the 3s and 4s. And I mean, look, there's nothing you can do about that. They did that to themselves, right?
Yeah, if you're only breaking even at $3 a mile, there's a problem there.
Sure, sure. So anyway, I'm a huge fan of booking ahead. I try to always stay booked ahead. It's less stressful, right? You're not having, and again, the nice thing too, like I deal with probably realistically the same 5 brokers for 90% plus of my business. And so if people will get off the load board, whether it's 1, 2, 3 or dad or whatever mentality, and start forming relationships, what you're going to find is you're not going to be that guy sitting in your truck making 30 damn phone calls. You're going to make 5, and somebody's going to have something that you're going to want to do for the money that you're wanting to do it for.
I agree. I mean, now guaranteed, there are brokers out there that, like you mentioned earlier, that have no interest in relationships. They're just the guy at a desk moving a load that his boss told him to move.
Yep.
They could give care less. But the smarter agents will still have that core group of trucks that they'll call first.
Yep.
Before posting on the load boards.
Yep. Look, and I think too, that is also one of the downsides to the click and go apps. Okay. So just was last night. I was watching another really big famous YouTuber, right? I was watching Keep Trucking, and I love his channel. But I noticed something. He said he hadn't ran a load in a week. And he's using the Truck Smarter and whatever, and the click and goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't run a load in a week. And he's mainly a click and go guy, which again, when there's a shit ton of freight, pardon my language, that's not a problem. But now he hasn't ran a load in a week. And part of that is when you're click and go, you have no relationships. You're just somebody who clicked on an app and put in a high bid that is twice what they're offering to move it for, and they're gonna find somebody to move it less 95% of the time. And when you don't have an overabundance of freight, that doesn't bode well in your favor.
Yeah.
And so I use Click and Go, right? Like I use Coyote. I had to cancel a load on them the other day. But the thing about Coyote is I have a rep,
Right.
right? So I will put the bid in, and then I have my rep's phone number. I'll just call him and say, hey, I just put this bid in. You know, where can we get on this? You know, what? That's not the case.
Okay.
You know, where and again, that's an established relationship with somebody on a Click and Go. But a lot of this Click and Go stuff, it just to me it hurts your business if it's just all Click and Go, right?
I agree.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying not to use Click and Go. I'm saying it can't be 100% of how you book your freight. Just like DAT or 123 can't be 100% of how you book your freight. You've got to establish relationships. Have to. And if you'll do that, you're not going to have to worry about booking ahead. You're going to get a good rate because you have a relationship.
Well, I'm going to add a little bit to that. So on the Click and Goes like Uber or Convoy, their analytics, that's your relationship. So if you're always on time, like for example, JB Hunt, if you don't use their app for all the check-ins and you don't submit the paperwork correctly on the app, guess what? Now you can't see the name and addresses of the customers because they have grade ratings. So there's still a way to establish a relationship with the Click and Goes to a certain extent. A lot of people don't know that you can actually call Uber and barter with them that way. It's a pain in the butt, but and they kind of discourage it, but it's been known to happen. But the Click and Goes, there is kind of a relationship. There was one, we have a Convoy rep that once called me and said, hey, I notice you do these loads all the time. Is this something that you want to do dedicated, because there is a little bit of that. Now I notice that their rates are kind of lower, so they're losing their capacity because people are checking them less.
Right.
But your performance is the relationship when it comes to Click and Go. So Click and Go, they rely heavily on the algorithms and the analytics. So you have to look good in that sense. And they
Right.
also,
And again,
if you price gouge one, they'll just like eliminate the ability to bid on that load.
And again, I like Click and Goes. I think that there is a totally a use and a place for them in our industry. Well, and all I'm saying is it just can't be 100% of how you're doing things, right? Because and again, in the instance of what I was saying about Keep Trucking, he hasn't ran a load all week because he hasn't gotten his price. And all I'm saying is maybe if he had some relationships with brokers, it would be different. At least I find that my relationships with brokers have paid in huge dividends because 9 times out of 10, we're not even the word. This is how much it's never mentioned. Here's where the load picks up. Here's where the load delivers. Here's what it is. Here's the temperature. Here's the appointment times. Do you want it? Yep. And they send it, and it has the price on it. And I knew what the price was going to be before he sent it, and they knew what the price was going to be before they sent it to me, because that's something we already agreed on. And I've done such a good job for them on every occasion that they don't mind paying me a fair price. Right? I have loads. Here's a perfect example. There was a load the other day going from Indianapolis back to Missouri. And I actually saw it on the DAT board. And I emailed my broker. I texted this broker. I have his cell phone number. I just texted him, hey, I gave him the reference number with a question mark. That was the text, the reference number and a question mark. And it came back with, here's all the particulars. And because we have not ran that lane before, it also had the price. So, what he was willing to pay me to do it.
Right.
That was $400 higher than the 15-day average. $400 higher than what the 15-day average was here's what I'll pay you. And that is because of a relationship. If you're Joe Blow and you're just calling around chasing every damn highest dollar you can get, you're going to get the 15-day average or less offered to you. Instead of, here's what this load really pays us. Here's what we can do. And again, to me, that's where that relationship comes in. That's why it is so important. I didn't wind up taking that load. Really wanted it bad because it was great money. But the appointment times didn't work for my driver. So, that sometimes happens. But again, the point of that is look what that relationship did. You don't call a load on the DAT board and they're automatically offering you $400 over the 15-day on a one pick, one drop. If you do and you call and they offer you all that extra money, there's a catch 99% of the time.
Excellent. Yeah, we got some really good comments here. A lot of people are throwing in their 2 cents. CDN says building a relationship takes time. It may not pay off tomorrow, but will next year and for years to come. Trucker Gal says, for this guy to compare rates 10 years ago is ridiculous. Well, I look at trends. Randy says that rates have nothing to do with living expenses, supply and demand. Right. And Sage has talked about that too. It's supply and demand. I mean, I talk to drivers all the time that says that we should be getting X amount because of what we do, our risk. But most like day cab truck drivers make more than the police officers, and their lives are not as much as risk. We probably make more money than some military people. So, I mean, if you go to risk to reward, there's a lot of examples how a lot of people are getting the shaft. I mean, at the end of the day, we're blue collar workers. And, so I think,
and look, I was saying with the 10 years, look, when you look at the rates, they have been trending upwards for the last 10 years slightly, right? It's not, now we had that crazy peak. First we had a crazy valley and then we had a crazy peak for the COVID part of it. And that peak was so high and it lasted so long that I think it messed with people's heads that, this is how much I should be getting paid. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get $4 or $5 a mile if you make yourself worth it. Right? What I am saying is, overall, the market is still paying, to me, plenty of money to make a profit. There's a lot of people that are acting like it's not profitable. And I guess what I should say there is, okay, maybe it's not profitable for you.
Right.
But that's how you managed your business. You got your expenses so high, it's not profitable for you. And if that's the case, that's not the broker's fault. That's your fault. It's your company. It's your business. It's your truck. And so, look, again, everything I do is over $3 a mile, period. End of the conversation. Everything I do is over $3 a mile. I get lots of loads that are $4 a mile. And people are talking like, well, you can't get, you can't get more than $1.75, $1.80. No, maybe in the area you're running, you can't get more than $1.75 or $1.80. But again, I've been doing videos for a couple of years now, and I've been pretty steady in my resolve about where to run. If you're running your operation outside of the Midwest, you're not going to make the same amount of money that you are running the Midwest. And is it in my benefit to tell everybody, look, that's where the money is? No, but I also know that a lot of people don't like to run the Midwest. They
especially in the
especially don't
winter.
like to run in the winter.
Yeah, well, I think that's a big part of it too. I mean, if you live in North Dakota, and Sandman tried to pop in here a couple of times. So I guess he has a bad signal. Why? Because he's in North Dakota. But you don't have the same advantages as if you live like where we live. So um, so so to me, where you live is just as important because, well, it's extremely important because it affects how you can run. Like I can always go home under a load. If something that passes, when you live 3 miles from I-44, there's a lot of opportunity there. But if you live in, say, Cheyenne, Wyoming, you're going to go out and you have to stay out for a minute and then come back, and realize that you're going to have a lot of deadhead to get home or a lot of deadhead to leave the house, and it's going to be a crap rate when you do leave the house. So, I mean,
Right.
so it's relative, right? Now, if you live in Texas, very saturated market. If you live in Dallas, you've got a lot of competition. There's a lot of trucks. Yes, there's a lot of lows, but there's a lot more trucks. And
Yeah.
so you're going to take your hit out of Dallas. I mean, there was a time where I knew I was going to have to utilize the Dallas market. So I called my guy that lives in Dallas, say, hey, how do you do this? How do you handle this? And he said the same thing. Look, I'll take that $1.50 mile to get out because that means I'm not sitting for 3 days because I got 1 week to do what I need to do. So
Right.
sitting affects me. And a lot of people don't realize that sitting does affect you. I mean, don't move out of desperation, but also don't sit there, just trucking. He can afford to sit for 3 or 4 days waiting for that banger load.
Right.
You
Sure.
know,
Obviously, look, if he was if there was if that was not financially feasible for him, I think he would run differently, right? I think he's like, well, okay, so I gotta, take a day off and work on the cars and do things around and hang out with the wife and kids, and that's fantastic. But my guess is if he couldn't take 4 days off, if he couldn't afford to take the 4 days off, then he would probably run differently. A perfect example of what you just said is Right Lane.
mm-hmm.
Right Lane lives in the middle of absolute nowhere, Colorado. And I mean, dude, I've been out to his house. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's easily a 250 mile deadhead to get a load. And he'd gotten a hold of me a couple years ago and was asking me, what am I doing wrong? I'm not making money. I'm not making money. And all he was doing was running around Texas, in the Southwest, New Mexico, Colorado area. And I said, look, dude, what you got to do is you got to take that hit, just like you said. Get out of Denver, but stop going to Texas because there's no money there. Coming out of Texas has never paid great in the history of ever, never, right?
Right.
I said, what you want to do is get yourself over to the Midwest, and you want to run around and stay in that area. And then when it's time to go home, you're going to get a really good load going back to Colorado, paying load, because loads going back to Colorado pay well. And it's going to offset that crappy load that you took coming out of Colorado. And I said, you know what? Try it for a couple weeks or a month and see if that don't change things. And we talked over that next couple weeks and that first month that he was doing it pretty regularly. And it's just substantially changed how much money he was making. So again, where you're choosing to run is also a big deal, but you can live in Wyoming and Colorado. You're going to have to run your business differently.
Right.
If you have the mentality of, hey, I'm going to live in Nowheresville, Colorado, and I'm going to be home every weekend, you're going to be broke.
Yep.
That's fact.
Yeah, Sandman's got some experience with that.
Yeah, I live in a dead market. I live up in North Dakota, and the only way I can make money is to take my hit, leave North Dakota, get over to the Midwest, bounce around the Midwest, maybe make one run out to the West Coast a month to get a big ticket one, and then short hop my way back out of there. Right? I'll do that because I prefer to run west of 35 just because I don't like dealing with the city traffics that you deal with when you're running Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Detroit. It's like city after city after city. I prefer not to have to deal with that as much as possible. So I'll try and like at least run west once a month, get my big nugget. But and then whenever any dead market, I don't care. There's a way out of Denver and to get a decent rate, but you got to go somewhere that's going to another dead market.
Right.
Or multiple stops.
Yeah. You got to take a load to Maine.
Yeah. Now, I've gotten $1,000 over the 30-day on going to Denver, and then I got right at the 30-day coming out, and the load that was going in was a 2-stop, or just 2 stops. Like I think it was like 40 miles apart. Pretty easy, and that's what you look for. But the other, going back to relationships, if you have a relationship with the broker that has the freight coming out of Denver, that was one strategy that I used. I had a broker that had freight that came out of Oklahoma City, so I was able to utilize the Oklahoma City market where most people weren't able to do that because the rates coming out of Oklahoma City were usually bad. But that relationship helped me deal with that. And so if you live in a dead area, I think that's an important part as well. Know your customers, know your shippers, know your brokers that have the freight in that
Do
area.
you have a dedicated Sandman? Do you have a dedicated pretty much so run that you get coming out of the house? Like, do you have a broker that you've worked with and built a relationship with long enough that you just, when it's time to leave the house, you call him up and you're like, hey, I'm ready to go. And he's got a lane that gets you where you want to be for a steady price every single time, or no?
No, but I do have brokers that call me and say, hey, I'm going to have this load coming out of this market. This is a market you run. When will you be there? And does it work with our schedule? Right. And so, and those loads always pay better than the 15-day average. Like they're consistent. They're like there's been times when I've ran it for $500 less than the 15-day average, and there's been times that I've ran it for $1,000 more than the 15-day average, depending on what the 15-day average is for. But it's consistent. It's profitable.
Right. Sure. And look, the 15-day averages to me is kind of irrelevant. What's
know
relevant
your own numbers.
Is it profitable for you to run these lanes and run these loads? Because if it's not, obviously you need to make some changes. Right. And what's profitable for you may not be profitable for me, because everybody's costs are going to be different, right? Your equipment costs are going to be different. Your insurance costs are going to be different. Your household costs are going to be radically different.
Yeah. Like for me, look, I've got a family of 8 and I'm the sole breadwinner.
Sure. That's a lot. So you don't go home often.
So yeah, when I go out and I make my money and I don't come home until that money's made.
Sure. Yep. But a lot of guys do it that way. Hey, this is how much I need. And I leave the house on the 3rd of every month, and I come home when that money is in my account. And then then we take a week off and we enjoy some home time, and then right back out and do it again.
Yep.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize too is, like, let's say you have, there are a lot of carriers that have different percentage of of dedicated to spot. They've got a carrier, they've got a dedicated run that they run. Let's say like Sandman, he can develop a load out of a shipper out of North Dakota that goes anywhere. And he's, and Ratman deals with this. And then he's at the mercy of the market that he's told to go in by this contract. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the spot, a lot of carriers are utilizing that for their backhauls. And so, and they have no choice but to take that $1.20 mile out of Florida to get back up to where they need to be to cover that contract. And those are the kind of carriers that brokers love, because they can pretty much manipulate the rate, because they know that you need that to protect the profit from the first load. So there's a lot of that going on in the spot market. A lot of people don't realize that, And so if you're constantly going to backhaul areas, it could be a bit of a challenge. So that's why it's important to keep your costs low. I mean, I know there are big carriers out there in Ohio that went out of business because the contract kept getting lower and lower, and they weren't finding the spot rates to come back, and they struggled and eventually went out of business.
James, I got a question for you. Do you think that your relationships has helped you when things go awry on a load, like so you get into detention or they can't unload you till the next morning? Do you think that those relationships have helped you navigate compensation for that downtime?
Yep, 100%. So, and I'll give you some examples. I have a broker. So let's say you have a load cancel on you, right? If the rule has always been, if it cancels before you arrive at the shipper, your brokers don't want to pay you. My brokers, I've got 3 of them that if it cancels day of, I get a toning.
Right.
Whether I'm there or not. I could be over unloading a different load, haven't even started heading that way, but it canceled that day of.
Yep.
They'll give me a $250 toning. When it comes to getting detention pay, the brokers that I have relationships with, I can get a new rate con inside of 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
If it's a broker I don't have a relationship with, they might tell you 8 business days.
Yeah, it might drag on for weeks, right?
Right. And the reason they're doing that, by the way, isn't because it really takes them that long. That's nonsense. They're doing that because they know that as an owner operator, you probably factor your loads, even if you're leased on, right? Let's say you're just leased onto a carrier and you're running for a percentage. They know that carrier probably factors their loads, and they don't want to wait 2 extra weeks for $140 worth of detention. So they'll just go ahead and drag it out, hoping that you'll just say, you know what, the hell with it, and you'll file your bill and get, because you want your money.
Right.
And I don't. I'll wait. I'm not so desperate that I got to have that money right now tomorrow. I'll wait. You're going to pay me if you owe me the money.
Yeah, there's a particular UPS click and go that always gives a hard time and always drags it out. And I call him up. I'm like, look, dude, you guys have screwed me over and over and over again. And I don't want to take the time to call you 4, 5, 7 days, 8 days later to get this figured out. Like, why can't you just send it now? Like, you owe it to me. You have the data. You have the tracking. You have the bills. It has the in and out times on it. Just pay it.
Oh, well, the shipper's got to approve that. No, they don't. My contract is not with that shipper. My contract is with you, the broker, with your carrier, with your brokerage. And that's, again.
Well, and so they do use that excuse that they got to approve that through the shipper. But what I have found is that the brokers that I have relationships with will just pay me out, even if they figure that they're going to have to pay it out of their own pocket. They pay me because they want me to call them back and they want me to run loads for them in the future.
Yeah. And again, the brokers I have relationships with, I can get it done inside of 15, 20 minutes. And I get tow news day of, instead of you actually have to arrive. And the ones that I don't have relationships with, you got to play the game. And again, their game is, well, if we drag it out or we make it, like TQL, they make it ridiculously hard to. Sorry, I forgot to mute that phone. They make it ridiculously hard to get a detention, right? You got to jump through all these hoops. You got to fill out all these extra forms. It's all a bunch of nonsense. Meanwhile, they were tracking you on their app. They know. The reason they're making it difficult is so you'll just say the hell with it and you'll bill them right.
Well, so my experience with TQL, I had an issue with one of their loads. I found and kept, at one point we had an issue and I got pretty higher up in the chain, carrier services, and so anytime there's any dispute, I go directly to them, and it's usually taken care of. It's usually handled. I've also had brokers tell me, hey, I'm going to go ahead and pay you this, I'll just deal with the consequences later. So I mean, a lot of brokers have cushion in the money to be able to pay that, to take
But
care of their good
that
carriers.
also is probably based on your relationship with that broker, right? That's
Right.
probably a broker you've dealt with a bunch. Whereas if you're just Joe Blow who's calling up trying to gouge for the highest rate every time and you don't have a relationship, the broker's not going to be so apt to say, hey, you know what, buddy, let me pay you.
Yeah.
I find that relationship is what gets you treated the way you should be treated.
Yeah, I agree. So, man, we got a lot of good comments here. I don't even know if we can get through them all. So, was that phone call the cave colony there?
No, that was my wife.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, she's probably calling to see what time I'll be home. I told her I'd be home this morning, but I told her I didn't know what time, so I told her I had a 9 a.m. delivery. She'll be okay. If it was really important, like she wrecked the car, she'd have called right back.
Let's see. Sage says, how much is price gouging a customer on a carrier side? I think Sage and other people are having some. His question was, how much profit should you make? And I think he's referring to the driver mentality that brokers shouldn't be making X percentage on each load. And so, there was a time where drivers went to the government and said, we want transparency. And so I think he's still tiffed about that. I've never wanted broker transparency. I have broker transparency because I've got access to that software. But it's only lane rate averages on the broker side. And to me, it's like you don't.
Question.
Well, I mean, I'll let me make one more comment. So when you buy a Coke at, if you're drinking the Carbolicious at the convenience store, do you ask them how much it costs them to buy that Coke so they could turn around and sell it? If you knew the answer, you probably wouldn't want to buy it.
Right.
If you watch Shark Tank, you'll see they tell you the profit margins. Hey, yeah, this $50 item cost $1 landed, to make and deal with. And you notice the eyes light up of all the sharks, because that's what profit is. So I've never been one about transparency, because if you truly knew, if we truly knew how much like a Ford F-150 cost to make, and I've seen and heard stories, you wouldn't want to spend 60 grand on it, right? So I mean, there's that. But go ahead, Big Rig. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, as far as how much profit should I make, I think a lot of owner operators mentality is, I need to make as much profit as I possibly can on every single load, period. And my mentality is, I need to make as much profit as I'm comfortable with. Right? I don't want to haul a load for a loss, but I've literally had conversations with my brokers that I have relationships with, where I'm like, hey, make sure that you're making money here. Right? I think a lot of people problem still is people don't know what their cost is. They don't know what their cost per day is. They don't know what their cost per mile is. And when the loads that I'm working with, I'm comfortable with the profit that I'm making. In some instances, could I make more? Maybe, probably. I don't know. Do I leave money on the table? I think I leave money on the table all the time. But I don't even care that I'm leaving money. Like, it's not even a thought in my head. It's, oh no, man, I left money on the table. On it, I don't operate that way. I just,
what do you
want to
think
make a profit.
What do you think of Edgewood's comment? She says, "Big Rig CEO, you say you don't run for under $3 or $4, Bull, you're the classic example of someone who's never had to do what it takes to survive. No disrespect, Snorelord, you've never been homeless. I've been homeless, but
So have I. And here's the thing. It's not that I won't run for under $3 or $4 a mile. What I was saying is everything that I'm doing, they're offering $3 and $4 a mile. That's the offer. It's not that I won't do it. And by the way, I can do it for less than $3 or $4 a mile, obviously.
well, I think every owner operator has the want, the need, and okay, this is dumb. You know, I think there's like 3 levels. You
Sure.
go for what you want, and don't go below what you need.
Right.
And so yeah, but so yeah, I wanted to address that comment because I know you have struggled. I know you've been homeless. I know,
God, I've
and
been homeless. I've had to file bankruptcy. I've lost my house. The most humbling experience in my life was going home one day, and this was back when I was doing lease purchase and stuff, and trying to run a business, and looking my wife dead in her face and saying, "You need to find a place for us to move because we are losing our house." Right? I know what it. I know. But look, just because you get knocked down doesn't mean that you don't get back up, right? Every one of us has struggled for certain, okay? But the difference between people that struggle and get back up and move forward and people that struggle their entire lives, because there are people like that,
right?
Is they don't learn from their mistake when they got knocked on their ass. Okay, so if you're in the schoolyard and the bully punches you in the face and knocks you on your ass, if you don't learn to avoid the bully, then you deserve to get punched in the face and knocked on your ass.
So you either avoid the bully or you stand up and face him, right?
Or figure out how to take him out, right? And
right.
So this whole idea that you've never struggled, look, to me, I heard this a long time ago, and I don't remember who said it, but I do remember that they were black. And they said being poor is a choice, right? Being poor is a choice. You're not poor because you're black. You're not poor because you're white. You're not poor because you're a woman, you're gay, you're a lesbian. You're not poor for any other reason than you're choosing it. And to me, part of that choice is you don't learn from your mistakes. So if you're living in a truck, that's by choice. Wholeheartedly. And by the way, if you're living in your truck, you're not homeless.
Right. And so, look, to your point about why people are poor. In America, we all have the same opportunities. We all have the same opportunities available to us. Now, there are different challenges depending on where you're at in life at the moment that might take it longer to get out of a certain hole, right? But it's about mindset. And if we think that all's we're good enough for is the trailer park, then we will stay in the trailer park.
Yep.
Right? If you believe that you can do better than the trailer park, you will eventually get out of the trailer park if you work hard.
Yeah.
But you have to believe it. You have to believe it, and not in your mind, in your heart, in everything that you do and think. You have to believe that it's coming.
Sure. And it's a choice. You're choosing it for yourself. So
Right. So,
look,
but I don't think it's a conscious. It's not necessarily a conscious choice. And I want to make sure we get. Look, you have to choose. It's like, well, everything's bad. The brokers are bad. The shippers are bad. The roads are bad. The construction is stupid. The cars are stupid. If you have that mindset that everything is bad and negative, you will look and focus on life in a negative way. If you say it's going to get better today, it's going to get better tomorrow. It's always there's always a way up and out. You'll face life in that way.
sure.
I like what
And
Stuart.
so I got a question. I saw James. I got a question for you because I have utilized this strategy myself. So somebody in the comments said that if you're making $3 a mile, all miles, then you're sitting a lot. Do you pre-book a lot of freight?
I pre-book all my freight.
So on Monday, you booked your whole week.
So the way I can do that, but I don't. So I'm always like 3 loads ahead, right? So today's Friday. I already know what I'm doing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. And by the way, so does my other driver. I've already booked him for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and next week. Now, I book him because he's asked me to. Right. He's fully capable and able to call up and book his own freight. He's allowed to do that. He chooses to let me do it because I think because I do such a good job for him. Right. He makes good money because I'm doing, but so just right there, that's 6 loads already booked for next week. And what I'll do Monday is I will start adding to that until either one of us decide, okay, it's time to go home.
Right. And so I've done the same thing. So as volumes have fallen off, so last year, 2021, you could wait till the last minute and there was always a good paying load on the board when you got to your destination, right? Oh, yeah. So you could play the last minute game and find that freight that paid extra. But what this year, look, March, was perfect example for me. On Monday mornings, I would book my entire week to the next Monday. And that's what I did. And I made as much money in March as I had in February, right? I made more money in March than I did some of the months from 21. So
there's going to be some smoking, so this is not for children anymore.
but you utilize the opportunity to book in advance of delivery. So you're not waiting to the last minute to find that $3 load. You're finding it 2-3 days in advance, grabbing it before somebody else grabs it.
Yeah.
Well, the caveat to that too is I don't know if Wheel Burner is aware of this, but James is a reefer driver. He's
right. Yeah. So I'm not doing van freight.
Yeah.
I have a dry load now that paid me right at $3 a mile.
Right.
Okay, and that included the deadhead. It was over 3, but I haul refrigerated. And look again. So I was talking a little bit ago about choices. I've been driving 22 years, so I have some perspective on trucking. And my first thought is van is the most oversaturated part of trucking.
Yep.
Hands down, it is. You can find somebody with a dry van on every freaking corner. Then it's refrigerated, right?
Yep. Next step up is refrigerated.
Right. Then we're the next largest group, but we're still small enough that to me it's beneficial, right? And
well, and you have some additional
afraid of refrigerated freight. Oh, what if you get a claim? Blah blah blah. You can make decisions to limit your possibility of a claim. Is a claim still possible? Yes, but like me, I don't haul fruit and berries. Ain't happening. Right? I don't haul ice cream. That's an absolute no way. Number one, it's too hard on my unit. Number two, the claims on ice cream are huge.
The risk is too high.
Right. So I haul a lot of dairy, right? 33 to 35 degrees. I haul a lot of meat, frozen and fresh. And I haul a lot of just frozen product, frozen bread, frozen pizza. And if you keep yourself in that range of -10 to 35 degrees, there's so much freight to be moved. And then my other thought when I was deciding what type of freight, and by the way, refrigerated freight has always paid better than van. Always.
Yeah.
And I'll add,
years I've been driving, refrigerated freight has always paid better than van.
and I'll add that Pig Rig CEO has experience with tanker, flatbed, step deck, van, and reefer.
And intermodal.
And intermodal, yes.
Right?
You've done it all.
I've tried, right? I've tried.
Yeah.
I've obviously, look, I said this to Steve yesterday. You know who's making huge money still? I mean, absolutely stupid huge money.
Tanker.
No, not tanker.
Oh, OD, yeah, oversized. Yeah, just ask
They're
Sage.
still killing it, right? They're still getting great, huge money because they're such a small niche.
Right.
And so if you're in van, and it is not in my best interest to say this out loud, right? Think about moving to reefer, because people. The other thought I had, look, I'm just a dumb trucker. Was people don't stop eating. In the worst part of a recession, people are not going to stop consuming meat and dairy. Those are staples of life.
Right. So like I flipped in April, I flipped to step deck. I made a pivot. But it's done, and I've done really well with that. But I have a lot of experience with open deck freight, previous to coming out on my own authority.
Right. I got experience with falling off open deck freight.
I've done that once. I've done that once.
I laid on the ground for, oh God, it felt like 30 minutes. Nobody came to help me. I was like, dude, what if I and I screwed up my shoulder really bad. But I was like, man, what if I had hit and I did hit my head because my helmet flew, but it was like, what if I'd have cracked my head open? Nobody would have come to help me or nothing. And I was like, man, this ain't for me.
So there's risk involved in anything we do, right? And the least amount of risk in trucking is in dry van, because we don't touch nothing. We back up to the dock, they load us, we pull away, and we're gone, right?
Yep.
And we back into the next dock, and they unload us, and we're off to the next pickup. I mean, with flatbed, I touch everything. I touch every single load, right? And I'm up and off the deck. There's and it's all exposed. There's nothing to hold it in.
Of your business is oversized.
So I haven't done any. I don't have any experience doing oversized, but I look at the board and I'm just like, why am I not doing this? Right.
So here would be a suggestion from me to you. Sage.
I've already connected with him, and we've been talking a lot, and he's helped me.
Much experience, or I would be
knowledge,
talking his freaking ears off, because not only will he be able to put you on an oversized load at some point, but he can help you learn what you're needing to know, how to get the permit, securing because I've hauled oversized. Securing oversized freight is not that much dramatically different than securing regular deck freight.
No, the securement's the same. The compliance state over state is where I get nervous, right?
That's where Sage will be a wealth of knowledge for you.
Oh, he is. I talk to Sage a lot.
And he knows it.
I got his cell phone number, and I've ran legal loads for him, and that we're growing into that.
Right.
But you don't talk Eric's ear off. He talks your ear off. That's how it works.
Yeah. No, and he's is no matter what anybody can say about Sage, what I will say about Sage is that he is more than willing to share his knowledge with guys.
Look, he reached out to me and he helped me understand more of the broker side so I can negotiate better, so I can use different skills understanding the other side, which is a big thing with me. Even when I was a company driver, I tried to have conversations with my dispatcher, and one of my dispatchers even showed me his screens and showed me what he looks at, and he gave me the process of how a load is sent to my Qualcomm. And that was huge in our relationship. And I believe that, CDN gives a lot of great insight on dealing with brokers. And so, and that's, Eric reached out to me and said, "Hey, give me a call." And he wanted to understand more about my side of the fence. He wanted to understand more about the YouTube thing. And then he helped me understand more about brokers. And now, even though he doesn't do dry van, he did have experience with that in the past with Landstar, but it just helped me with the mentality of negotiating for the most part. Pigtail, same thing. Pigtail reached out to me along with the dean on helping me negotiate, because they realized I was only using the click and goes for a minute, and that I could up my money substantially by being a better negotiator. So understanding the other side of the fence is huge. I think it's important.
Well, it is, and to Big Rig's point, James, is, you said, if you're not making it in dry van, maybe switch to reefer. I would say the same thing. Maybe you need to switch to flatbed, right?
Sure.
Maybe you need to look a pivot of some sort. I ran dry van differently in March than I had for the previous 2 years. Why did I do that? Because I knew that I needed to make some sort of pivot to keep my profit up, because fuel was eating me alive.
Sure. Look, and again, fuel
Stuart brings up a great point.
Because I still got guys going by me doing 80 miles an hour, and there's still hundreds of trucks idling every night.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Like, I mean, 5 miles an hour. If you're running 70, go to 65. It doesn't change your delivery time, but by half hour at the most, right?
Sure.
And it saves you $100 in fuel on a shorter run.
To Stuart Warby there, I paid $45,000 for my reefer trailer. It's 2017. It had roughly 9,000 hours on it, used like running hours. And these reefer units will run approximately 30,000 miles, 25 to 30,000 miles. And you're either putting a new reefer unit like on it, or you're going to rebuild it, or you're going to trade it in and get a new trailer.
You mean hours? Not miles.
Hours. You're right. I'm sorry. Hours. The other thing is, for my other driver, I just lease a reefer trailer, and they cover all the maintenance on the refrigeration unit itself. I'm still responsible for tires, brakes, lights, that stuff. But it's, again, to me, when I look at the cost, so that trailer costs me right at $2,000 a month, just a hair under, and that's a load. That's one load. One load covers the cost of that trailer for a month. So the cost of entry is not that high.
Well, it is different, though.
Well,
it is different.
I think a big part of that is that you got your truck payment down. I mean, a lot of people, if they don't know your past, you're a Schneider Finance guy, and you got the truck refinanced after what, 2.5 years, right? Three.
I finished the 3-year term on the lease.
I
had a $56,000 balloon, and I put a huge chunk of that, paid that off, and I financed $40,000. So I put $16,000 down on the balloon, and I financed $40,000 over a 3-year period.
And by having that cost down, that enabled you to get the trailer.
And look, right now trailers are still like everything, all other equipment. The prices are absolutely ridiculous, and reefer trailers are, beyond ridiculous. $125,000 for a new reefer trailer, right? And so going out and buying a new trailer, and even a used trailer, to me is not that's the reason I chose to lease instead of buy another trailer for my other driver. I could have went and bought him a trailer. That's not a problem. That's a phone call. But the reason I chose to lease him the trailer was because it was cheaper, and the tax benefits, right? And so, and so again, you can get into a trailer and get into refrigerated freight if you work for it, want it, right? That anything you want to do in this life is possible if you're willing to work hard and decide that's what you want and work hard to get it and don't stop until it's in your damn hands. I did a video about that a couple weeks ago where I said, no matter what, absolutely no matter what, if this is what it takes for me to do good in this business, if it takes a refrigerated trailer, then I'm going to have it, right? If it took me to have an RGN, if I had to, like, all of a sudden, people stopped eating food or something and whatever, and I had to have an RGN to stay in business, I promise you, I would figure out a way to get an RGN trailer. There's no scenario where to me, again, that comes back to what I was saying about choice. It's all about choices. Either you choose to accept the challenge and rise to it, or you choose to shrink from it. And if you shrink, then that's on you. That's part of you as a person.
Well, and back to Stuart's, I think it was, whose comment was it that was talking about we're at war with brokers? So bring that one back up, Steve, because I want to address.
That was Chuck, you being sarcastic.
Yeah, he was being sarcastic, but that mentality of we're at war with them, so why would we want to work with them? Look, I think that's a great opportunity to sell yourself. Use that to your advantage. I will work with you. I won't fight with you. If you communicate with me about what you need from me, I will communicate with you about what I need from you. We can have a working relationship to understand that we both get to make money doing this.
If you call with a combative attitude, and here's what I know from personal experience or people I know, and I saw this a lot when I was at Landstar. If you call with this combative attitude, like you're already the enemy, like you call up and you're like, all right, what's the load, and it doesn't bode well, right? And I find that the people that have trouble with self-dispatch or dealing with brokers are more combative. Like you have to almost be somewhat fake, for lack of a better term. You got to be like, you could have made it, and look, it's hard when you've made 30 phone calls and you've dealt with nothing but BS. It's hard to go, hey, how's it going? I'm looking at your load, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to do that. And that's why I try not to put myself in a situation where I have to be making 20 phone calls. But also, that's where the click and goes get you. That's where the click and goes, hey, you don't like dealing with brokers? Well, it's a little bit of a cut on the rate, but you can click and go our stuff, And that's essentially why I moved from Landstar to Schneider, because I didn't want to deal with that. And so when I made the decision to come back, to go into the spot market and talk to brokers again, my wife was like, well, how's that going to bode well? Because I was kind of combative when I was at Landstar. And my issues at Landstar, there were some in-house things, but a lot of it was me and not understanding the market. I didn't have any agents that I knew over there. But if you call with the mindset that they're the enemy, that's going to come out in the what. That's going to come out. Stuart, what's up, man?
What's up? So just sitting here listening, right? A lot. I have this philosophy, right? It's like 80-20. 80% of it is mindset. And I said about the macro decisions, with everything you do, the way you, address a broker, and like you say, almost be fake, or I won't go here, I won't go there, I won't do this.
Don't want
80% of it is in our own damn head. we're you know, it's the don't running, you know, the reefer, right? I mean, some people get scared off by reefer for whatever reason. I've ran reefer, you know, but all this stuff, we're our own worst enemy. It's all about the macro decision, and I said it earlier, the macro decisions, and say, hey, I'm going to do this, and take it small bites at a time. You can't say, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to achieve it in 1 year, because it can get daunting, right? In anything that we do, look at load by load, look at situation by situation. And if you say, hey, look, this is how I'm going to do it, one step at a time, and you look back a year from now, you'll be like, damn, I achieved that. I tell you, drivers are their own worst enemy. It's all in the psyche of our own heads. 99% of the time, I'm going to say. I mean, we are our own worst enemy with all of it. From how poor people are, you know, whether you decide to, you know, all this stuff, man. There's so many things that are incorporated in that. You know, you just got to step back and say, hey, one bite of the whale at a time, and you know, a year from now we'll be there. But we're so short focused. And look, and this is not a bash on America, because I love America. If you look at a lot of the rest of the world, they look long term. America's looking 30 days, 60 days, very short term. And as a nation and as people, we do the same thing. We look very short term and want the instant gratification and don't look at the big picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And as a business owner, we have to manage the micro, the load that we're on, right? And we also have to manage the macro, what our goals are for the year, right? What our goals are for 5 years. Do we want to go from 1 truck to 3 trucks to 5 trucks? Whatever our goals are, we'll all have different goals, right? And we may not meet some of those goals, but that's when we have to step back from the micro and make sure that we're getting back and looking at the macro environment.
Yep. No, I agree 100%, man. I agree 100%. You know, and it can be used in all of the situations that you guys have been speaking about this morning. You know, where you are on the poverty level, where you know where you are in your business life, where are you at on a load, where are you at when you deal with a broker. It's all the same thing. It's just putting that, you know, applying in each individual situation. It's all the same thing, you know.
It is. It's mindset. It's mindset. It's staying out of the negative, staying in the positive, and trying to figure out. Look, I got held for 7 hours trying to get unloaded. Right. I'm like, if I get stuck in, oh, I'm getting screwed. If I'm getting screwed, and instead of just calling up the broker and saying, hey, this is what's going on, we need to come up with a plan, right? Where you're going to compensate me, and you're going to get taken care of by your customer, and everybody can leave this situation content, right? But if I get stuck in, oh, I'm getting screwed, man, like I can get so absorbed in that moment that I can't see the end of my month.
Yeah, no, it's funny, man. I was talking to a guy yesterday at the truck stop. I was at the counter, and there was this new guy. He'd just bought a truck. He'd just bought a trailer. I mean, he went through a bank and his financing, and he was super giddy and excited. He's like, oh, I can make this much money with the rates like this. And he was using fairly current rates, what he was talking about. And he was super giddy. And everyone around him was like, damn, this is a bad market. And it suddenly dawned and clicked on me. It's all about perspective. It is all about perspective.
Right.
He hadn't experienced the super good rates, so he didn't realize that rates are actually in a down market. But he set himself up to the current rates, and now he's like super giddy. Oh, well, I can do this if I run here and get this lane, and was coming off with pretty current rates, and he was like super excited about it. And it just made me realize that we are our own worst enemy, and we put ourselves in our little box and think we're getting screwed, and then, you know, it's just a downward spiral after that. You know, and then you got this one guy that doesn't know the difference between his head and his ass, and he's super giddy and excited about it, and he's actually putting a plan together to succeed. You know, I mean, it was sort of interesting to sit back and watch and listen.
what was that? Me? Are you talking about me?
Yeah, it's funny. No, hey, look, that goes back to what I said a little bit ago. I don't think the rates are horrible right now. I think the rates are again on par with what what normal rates have looked like over the last 10 years.
I would
It's
agree.
just what's
I would agree.
normal.
Yeah, I
Well,
would agree.
you got to admit though. I mean, come on. I mean, even you've called me and like frustrated because you have to admit that when you're doing something like, I always tell people, and you can ask anybody who's ever talked to me on or off YouTube, that coming in on a down lower market will make you a better owner operator. And
Yeah.
Sandman is a perfect example of that because your expectations are already set there. I mean, one of the big problems that I had when I was at Landstar is I came in on a high market. And so when the fourth quarter kicked in and or the first quarter of the next year came in and someone had flipped that switch, that was hard for me to deal with mentally. And that's a big part. You see it on Facebook all the time. These owner operators are struggling with this mentally because they came out in a great market and they adjusted their costs for a great market. So the mentality of the same load, I did this load for $1,000. Now I only want 600 for it. That's tough when you can't get them up to that 1,000 that you were making before. That's kind of hard to deal with mentally. So there's always a period where when the rates start to drop that it's tough to take that mentally. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
And look, you and I had this conversation back when I was doing regular chicken loads out to Ohio. And right around February, March, I called you and I was like, holy crap, man, they're only wanting to pay, like $2.50 now to come out of Ohio. I was getting $5 and $6, 3 weeks ago. And do I get frustrated? Look, you're not human if you don't. But
Right.
The difference between getting frustrated and giving up are two separate things. And I immediately changed my mentality back from frustrated to, okay, I'm frustrated, but there is a solution to this problem. And I started working the problem and within a week had a solution that solved the problem. And all it was moving the lanes that I was running a little bit.
Yeah.
And now the rates in Ohio and Indiana and Michigan are back to what I would again call normal rates. To me, $5 and $6 a mile is not normal.
Well, it's not sustainable either because that creates inflation.
So, look, everybody's going to get frustrated, and this kind of goes to what he was just saying. You can get frustrated, and you can let that control you, that frustration, or you can say, okay, what do I need to do differently? What changes do I need to make? How do I need to pivot? What adjustments have to happen for me to change this situation? And then get busy doing it, right? Get busy doing it.
Well, yeah. So when I first got into this, I talking to everybody and getting advice from everybody. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was study the load board. Study the load board. Look at all the markets you don't run and understand what markets are doing, and then go run the good markets.
Well, so let me address Nevada's comment here real quick. Sorry, Richard.
Oh, please.
No, you're good.
It's related. It's related to what you just said. If you are running nothing but certain areas, yes, rates are bad relative to the cost of equipment, tires, fuel. But you got to remember the cost of equipment varies to the equipment.
Right.
That's why you make
That would
more
be
with
my
an RGN.
comment.
Right.
The rates, what the reality of that statement, and look, I love Nevada. I started watching his channel. I think it's great. I was just telling you yesterday, Steve, that I loved that he did that video where he was making 30 phone calls, because he shows a very real side of trucking.
Yeah.
That it's not all sunshine and rainbows out here. Sometimes you really got to work at it hard, and it doesn't work out the way you want it. And that is very real. But what I want to say about his comment is he says rates are bad relative to our costs of equipment, tires, fuel, etc. And what the reality there is, no, rates are bad relative to his cost of equipment, fuel, tires, etc.
Yeah. So look,
Can
I
I
think
step in here? Can I step in?
Sure.
So you see
Go
that
for it.
truck on my screen right there. There is a
Yeah.
reason I sold that truck. Okay, the rates were good. Okay, well, just before COVID, I bought that truck just as everything could shut down, and soon as everything opened back up, I bought that truck. I felt like I'd made it. Okay, I was like, I put $40,000 down on it. You know, I was making it right. I had a really good time with that truck. The rates started to calm down. The equipment prices were still up. I actually made money off that truck. As much as I wanted to keep it, I knew my cost per mile because of fuel, the cost of running it. It as much as I loved it, it wasn't the right business decision because I'm now competing against the guy in the Volvo or the Cascadia that can get nearly, a third more in the miles per gallon. How am I going to compete against that when I could see what was coming on the horizon, that the rates were coming down? So what I'm doing is I have seen an opportunity in this to actually get my money back out the truck. Yes, I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's a hold pattern until equipment prices come back down and I buy back in, and I can be at a level playing field to everyone else. That truck, as much as I love it, I will sit here and tell you it was my worst business decision ever because of the cost of running it was way higher than what everyone else could run for. And
Right.
that's the reality. Our job is to move freight from A to B as cheaply as possible for us. It doesn't mean we take the cheapest rates. It means keep our costs as low as possible. That means we pocket as much as possible. And
Right.
when
and that's just
when we get that philosophy in our head, we will be super successful as an industry.
that's just business 101. Look, Ford just
Yeah.
put out Ford Motor Company just put out an article that they're creating an entirely new division that just handles their shipping and their infrastructure, because they had in one quarter they had $1 billion in increased shipping costs.
Wow.
Right. So
Wow.
they're pivoting, and they're moving their entire operations to get control of their shipping costs.
Mhm.
Right. So it's business 101. We have to make pivots to we want to be able to operate at our lowest possible cost per mile. One of the things I did was I cut my payroll because it was one of the first and easiest line items on my profit and loss to reduce cost. Now that wasn't easy. That wasn't an easy decision to make, but it was necessary.
Mhm.
Right. And I've mentioned this before. I can take the same exact load that Nevada can if it's not a team load. And I can take it for less and net more because my costs are a lot lower than his.
Right. Yeah, he's got a beautiful truck.
Yeah,
but I
it
also
is.
bet he's got a beautiful truck payment. And it went, that all that eats away at that profit, and you don't feel like you're getting ahead. And so again,
Well,
it's about decisions.
It's about decisions, right? It's all about decisions and mindset. Look, we all need to make decisions about how we run and what we need and what our bottom line is, what our total expenses are, and where can we cut expenses, right? So what we don't want to do is cut from our maintenance fund, because then our junk breaks down and we have more downtime, lost revenue opportunities. We have to find the places where we can save. Search the internet. If you don't have a fuel discount program, search the internet, find the best programs out there and utilize them. Take advantage of these brokers' opportunities to get into tire discount programs. Don't pay retail at the pump. Don't pay retail for tires, right? Utilize the programs that are out there to best create opportunity for you. Right.
So, and look, a suggestion I would make to Nevada is, if the current rates in van are not sustaining what you need and want to make, instead of just focusing on, oh my God, these rates are bad, these rates are horrible, figure out what you can do to get better rates. Maybe that's switching from van to reefer or from van to flatbed and changing how much money you're bringing in. If you're not willing to get rid of the high-end equipment, which again, it's beautiful truck, right? But if you need to make more money to stay in business and make this sustainable, what can you do to make more money? And my first suggestion would be get away from that van because it's so oversaturated and it just doesn't pay as much as other facets of trucking. You can totally you can up your revenue substantially just by making a change and a decision of, hey, okay, van is not working out, but reefer probably will, or flatbed probably will, and move into something that, again, is just a little bit more niche that pays a little bit more money. So that way it's more profitable for you. And that will solve your problem. Don't focus on the negative of, oh, van, because van is paying much lower than other than it was a year ago for sure.
Well, and it always is paid less than other platforms.
Right.
Well,
So
let me show you guys something. All right. So these are market maps. This is red is good on this one and blue is bad. So there's reefer and then there's van. And so
Right.
past experience and this is, there's plenty of YouTube evidence. You know, Stuart just mentioned it. Ike Stevens went through it. That a hooded truck in the van market is extremely difficult. It is possible, but it's extremely difficult. That's why the majority of the big hood trucks that you see are running Specialized, tank, and flatbed and step deck.
Right.
Another thing Nevada could do is, and again, I understand from watching his channel, he's only recently just started booking his own freight.
Right. So he's learning, and there's almost no room for error with those costs.
One of the things that I think he can do if he just really wants to stay in van is he needs to start building relationships with customers that have dedicated team freight.
Yep.
And continually just run for those 5 instead of trying to chase down the highest paying load. What he can do is find good paying, consistent loads with the same brokers that have team freight over and over and over again. And that will increase the amount of revenue he's generating.
So I've got a 2016 T680. I know the numbers on a 2020 W900. 10,000 miles a month, $3,000 in fuel savings. At least $2,000. At least $2,000 in fuel savings.
Mm-hmm. And you're not
That's
even
a
talking
trailer
about
payment.
You're not even talking about the truck payment. We're just talking fuel savings. Just
That's
flat out
fuel.
the fuel. No, because a W900 is going to be more. You know, it's a flashier truck, and all the other, you know, might be a little bit more to maintain potentially. You know, so you're just talking fuel savings alone, right there.
Yeah, that's just the fuel. That's not talking about truck payments, insurance payments, anything. Those all go up with the W9 too. So look, a hood truck, look, we all want them, right? I'm not a big fan of them, but everybody typically wants to have the big hood, right? Got the stacks, you know.
I'd love to have one. I was actually looking at them not that long ago and decided, no, I'm not doing it.
No, because the finances don't work.
Well,
the finances don't work.
Here's where Nevada has an advantage. Is that number one, if he's known as a team, you know, just like James said, that's your niche market. That's the thing that all this blue spots that takes that away a little bit, you know, on this screen here. Getting that niche market, finding the brokers that specialize in team freight and run for those people. Also, if you could do show freight where it's important what the truck looks like. Every single truck at that Slipknot show was polished and looked good. And I know that there are Landstar agents that have that show freight that will give you an allowance for truck washes because they don't want some rat trap, duct tape, rattle trap, hauling, Slipknot's equipment, right? So finding the niche market is how you differentiate yourself from Joe Schmoes like me. So there's that.
Well, it is a niche market, but with the volumes where they are, it's probably a bit of a challenge to find consistent team freight as well. So finding where there's finding the broker that has that consistent load coming out of a particular market every week, and making sure that you get back to that broker every week so that you can run that team load, right? So
I've actually been working with Nevada this week, and I helped him book his week out. And there was a couple of things that stood out this week, and this is I think he learned a couple of things. So we were looking at a load that got him to somewhere on Friday morning, and he was looking for something going back west, which would have got him back Saturday night, Sunday morning. And I'm like, dude, you're going to sit a whole day as a team. I'm like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? So from I spoke to him about, I said, hey, look, try and book something Friday morning, a little short run overnight, pick something up Saturday morning. He managed to find that. Now he's booked right through till Monday. That truck doesn't sit over the weekend and doesn't have a day down. Little things like that. And I think the penny dropped with him when I explained that to him. But if the way he wanted to do it originally, he would have ended up sitting a day and a half at the back, or a day and a half revenue for a team is a damn lot of money that you're giving up, Right. So just little things like that on how you can book, and like I told him, I said, the way you want to do it as a team, if you're going to run off the spot market, find a long haul, then find your back haul back, and then try and find like a little connector jumper to beef up your rate per mile, and try and eliminate them sitting days. And I think that's what he did, ended up doing, and it's got him booked out till Monday. Just little things like that as a team will help you big time to eliminate that downtime.
So think about that. Let's say, I'm just going to use some round numbers for simple math, right? But let's say that truck generates $2,000 a day in revenue, right? Because it's going to run 2 shifts, so $1,000 for each shift, right? So $2,000. If he fills that one day and creates an extra $1,000, and he does it twice a month, that's an extra $2,000 on his gross revenue on the month, because hours of service aren't an issue for him, right? So that's an extra $2,000 just in those 2 decisions. And if you can double that up, you could end up having an extra $5,000 on the month, right? Which can completely transform your revenue, because your fixed costs, whether it's a single truck or a team truck, your fixed costs don't really change.
Yeah.
So that extra revenue is revenue minus fuel, and the rest is profit.
Yeah, focus on rate per day, not rate per mile.
Absolutely.
Well, and again, too, something he needs to really focus on as a team is finding and building relationships with brokers that consistently have team freight. So that way he's not always on the load board trying to chase a load. He's already got brokers that have loads for him when he's ready. That'll be a huge help, because it will create the consistency that he needs, and it will reduce the stress of having to make 30 phone calls to try to get a broker to give you a team load, because there's not a lot of team freight on like the DAT board per se. I was running team for a minute to help a friend out, and I put him in the truck with me, and we were running team, and that was one of the first things I noticed is team freight. I mean, if you're out in California, it's easy to get a team load, right? If you're over in the Carolinas, you can sometimes get a team load going back to California if that's what you're trying to do, run coast to coast. But it is very difficult to consistently find team freight on the DAT board. It's nowhere near as plentiful. And I don't know why. This something else that I noticed when I was running team. In my mind, when you're a team, you're covering a niche. Okay. And to me, that should pay more. But in the van world, especially, It seemed to me, and I was doing reefer when I was doing it. It was the same, pretty much so for reefer. Was they don't put a premium on teams on the DAT board. They want to pay you the same amount of money they would pay a solo driver to do it, but they want you to do it in half the amount of time. They want you to provide express straight through service. And if you can't figure out a way to get them to pay you that premium for that, for you being a team and having a team truck available, that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. And so that to me is where those relationships comes in, because those brokers that have consistent team freight are going to value you more as a team.
Well, I have experience with this. So as a team, yeah, there are a lot of brokers that are just wanting the same load done for half the time. And so that's where the rate per day has to kick in. But
right. So you worry about rate per day.
Right. And so most of the time when you see a lot of money on a team load, it's a security issue or you're rescuing a load. Like, in other words, you're not allowed to leave the truck alone. So right. And those can pay better.
But so one thing he could try, I don't know if it'll work, but he could try, every team load he books, ask the broker, do you have these consistently? And then try and figure out a backhaul to run that same team load for that guy, if he has it every week, to run it every week for him. Like, build those relationships.
Right. Look, Nevada's on the right track. He's gotten a lot of flack from other YouTubers on the stuff that he's done and he's learning, but a lot of people are stepping in to help him out. And it goes back to the like in the beginning of this 2-hour video, which I need to end here soon. It's all who you network with, right? If you have a bunch of people wanting to step in and help you, that's a good thing. But hey guys, I'm gonna cut this now. I got to get to work myself.
You don't work.
Yeah, you don't work.
Says the guy just filling up his Keurig.
Hey, I need coffee. Thanks for having me in today. Keep your wheels on the ground.
All right, thanks, Big Rig. And thanks Sam Man for coming in. Yep. and good luck today.
Thanks, chat. Thanks, Steve. You guys all have a great day.
All right, later. All right, guys, that was today's show. It went 2 hours and, well, probably 20 minutes by the time we get this done. I appreciate all the comments. I hope if you were offended or angered by anything that anybody said here, I hope that we can have good discussions and get over it. And if a person is offended, you have to look and figure out why. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this material. We didn't look at one low board, did we? So anyways, you should have your look. Booking ahead is important, especially on your Friday load and then your Monday load. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and strength for today. I know that things are rough. I know that things are tough, but we're going to get through it. So with that being said, strength for today, hope for tomorrow. Peace.